Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, A Handful of Daisies DIY. If you're new here, I'm Elaine. Thanks so much for stopping by. This week we're finally getting started on Christmas decor. I need to get some in my booth at By the Season, so we're going to work on that today. I did go to Michael's a couple of days ago and they were having a great sale on some 18-inch wood rounds, so I picked up quite a few. They were a pack of two for $9.99, which I think was a great price. So that's what we're going to work on today. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around and let's get started. Here's a look at the first set of rounds that I picked up. These are 18-inch. These were the natural wood look. There are also some that have that farmhouse white distressed look. We're going to start out with the wood look ones today. And we're going to be using This Home Believes. It is vinyl that I cut out from my silhouette machine. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of measure out where I want it. And then we're going to paint white in the middle where we're going to put this vinyl. So I'm going to tape it off and then measure it the best I can to make sure I'm getting it even on both sides. We're going to be using Dixie Belle and Fluff to paint this out. So I'm just going to give it an even coat on the first coat. Then, of course, because I'm impatient, I'm going to use my hairdryer and dry that down so we can put that second coat on. The Dixie Belle paint is pretty thick, but with light colored paint, you always have to do at least a second coat to get good coverage, unless you want it a little bit more rustic, and then you can leave it just the one coat. So we're going to go ahead and dry that so we can move forward to the next step. I'm going to go ahead and take the tape off, and you can see what good, clean, crisp lines you get there. And then I'm going to seal this in. You do have to seal in the Dixie Belle paint. So I'm going to use my polyacrylic to seal this in, and I'm going to go over the whole round with the polyacrylic. This is also going to make it easier for the vinyl to stick as well. So again, we're going to use This Home Believes. I am using Dollar Tree vinyl, which I normally don't use on a project like this, but I am going to seal it in with the polyacrylic, so it's going to work out really well. It's not going to come off. Dollar Tree vinyl is a little bit thinner and not quite as sticky as regular permanent vinyl. But for this application, it's going to work out well. I do save my transfer tape and reuse it. You can reuse it 3 or 4 times. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and use my polyacrylic over this vinyl, and I'm going to put a second coat on the whole thing. This will seal it in really well. So if someone does decide to put it on their porch, as long as it's a covered porch, it'll be fine. The next thing I'm going to do is measure out to put the holes for my hanger. So I'm just going to use my drill and a drill bit. And I did put just some old pieces of wood under it so I didn't mess up my craft table. So I'm using this rope I picked up at Dollar Tree. It is really thick, so I'm going to cut the length that I need, and then I'm just going to use one strand of it. So I'm just going to unravel it because one strand is plenty thick enough. So I'm also going to use some Scotch tape because it does unravel on the ends, just so I can get it through those holes. So when I went to put it in the holes weren't quite big enough for this because it was too wide. So I got a bigger drill bit and made the holes a little bit wider. And that worked out perfectly. So I'm just going to knot the ends to hold this in. And I know a lot of people put the knots on the back side. I think it looks really good with the knots on the front side, and it helps the sign hang better. So I'm just going to clip off the ends where I had that tape. And now I'm going to try to make a bow. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know I am not a bow maker. So cut me a little slack on my bow. It turns out okay, but probably not the best bow. So I'm using floral wire just to put it together. And then I'm going to add some tails. Now I've watched a lot of videos on making bows. I don't know what it is about the bows. They're just hard. I guess everybody has things they're good at, and bows just aren't one of them. I'm just going to spread it out a little bit, and I thought it needed something in the middle. So I did have these little wooden plugs that go in furniture pieces, and it was the exact same color as the wood on the round. So I thought that would match perfectly. And I did glue this on, but then I decided to come back later because I was worried about it falling off, and I drilled a hole in the middle and put the wire through the hole. So I know the bow's not going to come off. I always worry about those little things when it's something I'm going to put in my booth for sale. You always want everything to be a good product. And here's a look at how it turned out. Let me know what you think of this round. How did my bow turn out? Now on our next round, we're going to be using Dixie Belle and Antebellum. And I'm going to paint the whole round with this. This is such a pretty color, blue. Let me know in the comments below, have you used this color? I've used it on furniture as well, and I just think it's beautiful. So again, we're going to go ahead and use the hairdryer to dry it up. And I do put a second coat on it. Now we're going to go ahead and use the polyacrylic on the whole piece to seal that paint in. Again, Dixie Belle paint needs to be sealed in. And then once that is all dried up, we're going to move on to the vinyl. Now you can't see this one because it's white, but you'll see it here in just a minute. I'm going to trim it out a little bit just so I can make sure I get it on the round where I want it. Again, we are using Dollar Tree vinyl. Now I wouldn't recommend using Dollar Tree vinyl on something that you're not going to seal in, because even though it says permanent, it will peel up. So I'm just going to lay this out. I'm just kind of eyeballing it to make sure I have it where I want it. And I folded back just one edge. So if I put it down and it wasn't where I wanted it, it would be a lot easier to pull it back up. And then I'm just going to pull the other side and smooth it out. I think this white vinyl looks really nice on this antebellum blue. Let me know in the comments below what you think. So sometimes it does take a little bit to get the transfer tape off. This was a new piece, so it was a little sticky. Once you use it a couple of times, it comes off a little bit easier. So now that that's on, and I'm just smoothing it out really well, we're going to go ahead and polyacrylic over the top of this as well. So since I polyacrylic it before the vinyl and after the vinyl, we're getting two really good coats of the polyacrylic, so I know it's sealed in really well. I do off camera come back and polyacrylic the back as well. I don't show you that part, but I always finish the backs of my projects. So now we need to embellish it and put a hanger on it. So the same thing, I'm just going to take my drill and drill some holes in for the hanger, and I'm going to put one in the middle for the wire of the ribbon as well. Now I went ahead and pre-made this ribbon off camera. Again, you don't want to see how I make ribbons because it's a mess. But I'm trying. I'm learning. So what do you think of this bow? That one turned out a little bit better than the first one. But it did take some time to put it together. That's why I didn't show you. and I did it off camera. It's definitely the bow struggle. So I had this whole roll of buffalo check really thin ribbon that I thought would work well for this. So I'm just going to use that as my hanger. So I'm going to put it through the holes in the front and then tie it off in the back. And I am using my little Cricut tool to push it through the holes, and that works out really well. I started out by tying knots on it because I thought maybe that would keep it from going through the holes, but the ribbon was too thin, so I did end up tying it up. Now here's a look at how it turned out. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this one. So let's move on to the next one. Now this one, I'm going to make the middle part that I paint a little bit wider because my vinyl transfer is a little bit larger. And I'm going to be using just some red paint that I had in my stash. And it was a little old and thick, but it did work. It's acrylic paint and not chalk paint. So it did take 2 good coats to cover the white. And of course I used my hairdryer to dry it again. And the heat from the hairdryer does help to pull the tape off as well and not pull off your paint. So the next vinyl transfer is going to be Merry Christmas. Of course, I had to add a red sign for Christmas. I don't do a whole lot of red. I like more natural tones, but I thought this was really pretty. So again, we're going to polyacrylic the whole thing. And this one, I decided not to use a bow on. I just found some greenery in my stash. So I just put a couple of pieces together and put a wire on it. So I am going to drill a hole for the wire and for the hangers. So to get the wire on, I just used my needle nose pliers to twist the wire in the back. And then I also came back and added some glue, some hot glue to that as well, just to make sure it didn't go anywhere. Now for this hanger, I'm just using a piece of red ribbon that I had. And I'm just putting that through the holes and tying it off in the back. And here's a look at how that one turned out. Let me know what you think of this one. I'm not sure about the greenery. I may end up changing that out. All right, for our last round, I'm going to be painting this one in Ink by Waverly. Now I did add polyacrylic to this black paint. There was about a ½ inch of paint in the bottom of my jar, so I went ahead and put polyacrylic in, and that'll help smooth it out a little bit because it was a little thick. Plus it'll give me my top coat on it as well. So once I got that on and dried it off, I was trying to find center in my round so I could make sure I put my vinyl on in the right spot. And I don't know if you can see this yet, but this is glitter vinyl. It did come from Dollar Tree. And I thought that would make the perfect decal for this sign. Now that one did stick really well. But I did come back and polyacrylic the whole top, just like I did all the other ones. So for this one, I had this silver ribbon in my stash. So I'm going to go ahead and drill the holes and use this ribbon as my hanger. I'm not going to put any other embellishments on it. I'm going to just tie a bow on the front. And I think that was enough for this one. Let me know what you think. This ribbon was really stiff, so it was a little hard to tie it. And it wasn't as long as I wanted it to be, so my tails are a little bit short, but I think that's okay. Sorry you're getting shots of my head. Here's a look at how that one turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Here's a look at how they all turned out. I hope you enjoyed today's project. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. We have a lot more Christmas DIYs coming up, so make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of those videos. Thanks again and have a great week.